It's been another incredible year in the world of sneakers. While a lot of people may be looking at the lower resale prices on sneakers and saying things like sneakers are dead, I think the real sneakerheads know that that was definitely not the case. We had a lot of really great pairs drop this year, and for the most part they were pretty easy to get. In fact, in my humble opinion, I think that right now sneaker culture is in a really good place. And I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to look at all of the different sneaker brands this year, look at all of the shoes they dropped, and give them a score, something like a report card for the year. And if you guys do enjoy this type of video, let me know and I will definitely drop one every single year. So I'm gonna try and cover all of the major sneaker brands in this video and some smaller ones as well, starting off with Saucony. Now I will admit, I don't cover this brand enough on this channel, but they definitely caught my attention in 2023 with not only their collabs, but with also some retro sneakers that they brought back, such as the Pro Grid Omni 9. And some of those colorways look pretty awesome with some iridescent details. And also the collabs from Saucony this year were pretty impressive. We had the Color Plus Company Grid Shadow 2, love the Halloween vibes going on with that shoe. Another clean collab with Universal Works on the Jazz NXT, as well as the Raised by Wolves Grid Azura 2000. And also one of the standout sneakers of the year period from pretty much any brand was the J-Tips Grid Azura 2000, which is one of the most colorful sneakers of the year, but the way it was executed and the attention to detail was one of the best we saw on any shoe this year. So I do think Saucony had a pretty solid year in 2023, and for their efforts, I'm gonna give them an A-. Please, of course, let me know in the comments if you guys agree. And now moving on to a brand that has become a lot more mainstream in North America recently, and that is Salomon. The French brand started off the year in the best way possible, in my opinion, by bringing back some of their most iconic XT6 colorways, which were part of the recut releases. You already know I couldn't pass on the opportunity to get my hands on this Ren Kangaroo pair, which is simply my favorite colorway of all time. I also thought the brand had an exceptional year when it comes to collabs. Some of my favorite were the XT6 collab with End Clothing, which is this porcini mushroom colorway. And they also dropped a sneaker that in my opinion should be in the top 10 conversation of the year, and that is the Sandy Liang XT6 Expanse. And as someone who has been following this brand for a while, it was the first time that I saw insane resale prices on any Salomon sneaker. That definitely was a pretty good signal that Salomons are at a level now which they've never really been at before. However, I do have to criticize the brand a little bit because I think outside of the XT4 and the XT6, there hasn't been a whole lot of other sneakers that have gained popularity with consumers, and both of those sneakers came out well over 10 years ago. So I feel like the lack of innovative new products might come back and hurt the brand, but I do think for 2023 they had a very strong year. I'm gonna give them a B+ for their efforts. Moving on to the three stripes, let's talk about Adidas. Now the brand had a pretty negative year financially speaking. Sales were a lot lower thanks in large part to the loss of Yeezy brand. Adidas attempted to sell off their remaining Yeezy pairs in 2023. We also finally saw the release of the Fear of God Athletics line, which people were quite disappointed by when it came to the prices. However, on the positive side, some of their mainline sneakers continued to be immensely popular this year, such as the Samba and the Gazelle. Both of those models had extremely strong years. In fact, two of my favorite sneakers this year happened to be a Samba and a Gazelle, the Sean Wotherspoon collab as well as the Wales Bonner pony hair shoes. I also think Adidas had a pretty good year on the basketball side. The new Hardens that came out I thought were pretty interesting looking, and for me that upcoming Anthony Edwards basketball shoe might be one of the nicest basketball shoes to come out in a very long time. So overall a pretty mixed year for Adidas, but I do think that loss of Yeezy brand kind of overshadowed a lot of the good things that the brand did this year, and for that reason I am giving them a B-. That is of course just my opinion. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree. Next, let's move on to Asics. Now this brand really rode the wave this year of 90s and 2000 sneakers coming back in a big way. Asics really grew in popularity this year. I noticed them all over my TikTok and Instagram feeds. Their mainline sneakers such as the Gel Cayano 14s as well as the 1130s just kept selling out, and some colorways were even hard to get and had resale value. Additionally, some newer models such as the Gel NYC were a huge hit with almost every colorway consistently selling out, and we also saw some pretty nice collabs on that model as well. And speaking of collabs, Asics once again came through the Hall Studio pairs in my opinion on the 1130s, both this colorway as well as that Glacier pair, two of my favorite sneakers to release this year. We also saw some very interesting collabs with Cecily Benson on those GT 2160s and the Dime 2160s. Their partnership with Kiko Kostadanov also produced some pretty beautiful shoes. There isn't really anything negative to say about the brand. They also had their most successful ever financial year. So for all of these reasons, you can definitely say that Asics deserved an A+ this year. Moving on to the biggest sneaker company in the world, let's talk about Nike. Some of their best work this year seemed to be with Air Max sneakers. The introduction of the big bubble Air Max 86 proved to be really popular with Air Max fans. The Cortez 95s I think was maybe the best thing that Nike put out this year, considering how much hype that sneaker generated. I can't remember the last time I saw people running through the streets for a sneaker. I also think the Nike SB line had an exceptional year this year. Some really great collabs like the Jarritos, April skateboards, Fly streetwear, the Albino and Preto. These were just some of my favorite collabs this year. The same cannot be said about the mainline dunks, however, because it seems like in 2023 we finally put the Panda dunks in the grave, as that sneaker officially died. But that didn't stop Nike from giving us new colorways every single week, and in my opinion, Nike really overdid it with the dunks. Some other models that Nike tried to push really failed to catch on, such as the Nike Airship and also the Mac Attacks. Nike even tried to pull off a fake beef stunt between John McEnroe and Travis Scott to boost the hype on that model, which honestly I thought was pretty lame. The one sneaker model though from Nike which I thought was easily the most successful this year was the Zoom Vomero 5. We saw some really exceptional pairs this year, such as that supersonic colorway. However, I didn't think there was enough innovation from the brand this year, and they didn't really have any sneakers that I thought belonged in the top 10 sneakers of the year conversation. So for those reasons, I'm giving Nike a C for this year. But as always, let me know what did you guys think about how Nike performed this year. Moving on to Jordan Brand. Now I always find them very difficult to rate every single year because let's be honest, Jordan Brand is pretty much a retro brand. They only ever release retros. Of course they do release some newer models, but let's face it, no one really cares about them. And I really think that in 2023, the nostalgia and hype around Jordan models really started to cool off. We had Jordan 1s sitting pretty much every time, and even iconic colorways like the Royal Reimagined, they were going on sale and still not selling out. Additionally, some of the strongest collaborators with the brand like Union, they put out some releases that were quite polarizing and nowhere near as good as their previous collabs. Another popular collaborator, Ama Manier, was caught up in some money laundering allegations. And this is just my opinion, but these Ama Manier 5s this year were just not as good as some previous Ama Manier collabs like the 3s and the 1s. The biggest bright spot for Jordan Brand this year for me was the SB4s, which I thought was a pretty awesome reinterpretation of the Jordan 4 and also the first Jordan 4 that doesn't make my pinky toe scream for help. And it's also just a really nice colorway. Some other really good releases this year included the Jordan 3 Reimagines, which of course were an instant classic. We had the J Balvin 3s as well. And I also thought that the Travis Scott Low in the olive colorway was one of the nicest colorways we've seen so far from that model. But I still think that overall it's fair to say that it was a pretty lackluster year from Jordan Brand. My grade for them this year is a C+. And last but not the least, let's talk about New Balance. Now for the last 3 years, this brand has been on an absolute tear, giving us some of the best sneakers of the year. And I thought that they continue to do that in 2023 as well, but I think maybe because of economic conditions, people weren't as willing to spend that premium amount of money for sneakers. So we did end up seeing a lot of very nice New Balance shoes sitting this year and going on sale. The Made in USA line I thought continued to put out exceptional shoes this year, like this 990 V6 in the cream colorway. And honestly, being able to get shoes this nice on sale, I'm not complaining. However, some of the shoes that really brought the brand into the mainstream over the last few years, like the 550s and the 650s, they seem to have really fallen off this year as consumers started looking at different models. However, I will say the 9060 seems to be a big success story for the brand because I just keep seeing that shoe everywhere. It seems to be very popular with people still. And from a collab perspective, I thought we had some pretty nice pairs such as the Action Bronson ones, also from Orolay as well as Stone Island. I can't say that the New Balance pairs really wowed me like previous years, however. So while I do think the brand had a really good year, and I'm not saying they've fallen off, I just cannot give them as high a grade as I have in previous years. So I will give them a B+ for 2023. And with that, we have come to the end of the sneaker brand report card for the year. Let me know if you agree, disagree, if you like this format or not. Maybe I'll end up doing one of these every single year. Thank you, shout out to each and every one of you if you made it to the end of this video. Give me a what up JD if you did. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram if you haven't already done so. That's where I'm most active. And also the sneaker podcast Kickback Pod, available Spotify and Apple Music. Links to that are in the description. I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.